in an evaluation process, I would put out 2 blue, 2 yellow, and 2 black blocks. And then I'd say, show me a block that's not yellow. That's a higher order processing, right? Negation is very high order. You see all these blocks and you have to give me one that's not what I asked for. So that's real concept thinking, right? That takes a lot of bandwidth to process the meaning of that statement. Hello, and welcome to Talking Toddlers, where I share more than just tips and tricks on how to reduce tantrums or build your toddler's vocabulary. We're going to cover all of that, but here, our goal is to develop clarity, because in this modern world, it's truly overwhelming. This podcast is about empowering moms to know the difference between fact and fiction, to never give up, to tap into everyday activities so your child stays on track. He's not falling behind, he's thriving through your guidance. We know that true learning starts at home, so let's get started. Welcome back. This episode for Talking Toddlers is titled, How to Raise Successful Kids Without Overparenting. So I know you might be asking, well, let's define successful. That's a fair request. My definition of success actually means that we have to first create a goal. What are we striving for? What kind of future do you see for your toddler? Right? Take a moment here to look at your 6-year-old, your 7-year-old, that future child. Imagine him being content, independent, reliable, responsible, eager, curious, and loving. Notice I don't mention intelligence or being smart. That's not how I measure success. We build cognitive intelligence once we have internal sense of balance or self-regulation, and once we know how to engage with our environment around us with a rich language system. So keep that successful image of your 7 or 8-year-old in your forebrain, because now when you look at your babies and toddlers, we kind of define success a little bit differently. Right? You're thinking, well, success would be sleeping through the night or master crawling or walking and talking, develop decent table manners, enjoy healthy eating habits, have a good relationship with food, learning how to share or wait and take turns. That's where we begin. That's where success is beginning to emerge. And the best way to do that is through play with your baby and your toddler. And I've mentioned the science of play and its effects on the brain in past episodes, and how it's emerged extensive research in a wide variety of modalities, right? Looking at social and psychological sciences, behavioral and biological sciences. There's a lot of different people looking at play and how that helps build a healthy adult. And it's good for you and me, children and adults alike. It strengthens our mind and our body, which then creates a more direct path toward social competency, emotional stability, physical capability, and what we're talking about today, success as a human being. So today, I'm not talking about any old play. I'm going to peel back the layers and review on a specific type, which is referred to as open-ended play. You may have heard of that. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but let me define it here so we are all on the same page. Open-ended play provides your child an opportunity to manipulate materials the way he or she wants to, and allow them to express both verbally and non-verbally. He decides what he's going to build and what materials they're going to use. And he could make it up as he goes, or he could try to copy things that he sees in his environment, right? And that's the beginning of role playing. So open-ended play has no rules or even instructions. Your child is free to use their creativity and their imagination, but they need some stepping stones. There's no right or wrong way to do that, but we can introduce some ideas. I will share some of those ideas with you. So some of the research really highlights these benefits. It boosts creativity and imagination, of course, right? Allows your child the opportunity to practice independently, and that's what we're striving for. Encourages problem solving. How do I put this stuff together? Really builds and hones fine and gross motor skills. Encourages communication and verbal expression. It also allows your child to interact with the environment more and more. Building social and emotional skills through role playing, right? Taking it on. What does it feel like to be a truck driver? What does it feel like to be a teacher and in charge, or whatever role they're trying to play? It also teaches your child self-regulation and how to try and try again. And I like to revisit this conversation because as we begin to enter this new season, fall, and we're looking right around the corner for the holidays, you're saying, oh my gosh, Erin, it's barely October. Some of you like to get ahead of it and pre-plan, and I support that. But I also want you to have a good sense of where you see your family during the holidays so you can share with your extended family and let them know what you feel would serve you and your children the best. I always like to encourage my families that it's better to spend more quality time together and to build those opportunities to be present together as a family, to share in these creative, playful experiences. And it's not about the stuff. So that's where I think open-ended play fits nicely into looking ahead for the holidays, right? So I assure you, toddlers and preschoolers, they do not remember the presents under the tree. Remember that we're trying to build this relationship with him, and we use play to help foster that. So keep it simple, no batteries or minimal batteries with toddlers. And then I want you, if you haven't already, start to rotate toys. And so let me know if you understand what rotating toys mean, and do you do it? Are you interested in learning more about it? But there's a lot of good benefits to be able to do that. It also helps limit kind of, I think, the stress in the home and the family life too. But for now, keep it simple. Keep the playroom or play area wherever you have all their stuff. Keep it simple and tidy and organized to the best that you can, because your baby and toddler, even your preschooler, can get easily overwhelmed. And sometimes we think of like this big open playroom and lots of stuff. That doesn't serve them. So here's a rule of thumb. At 6 months, your child might be able to play by themselves for about 5 minutes. At 12 months, they can handle maybe 15 minutes of solo play, right, at a year. At 18 months, you're looking at 15 to 20 minutes, even though you're always close by, right? You're keeping that third eye on them. By 2 years of age, they should be able to handle 30 minutes of play on their own. And that's a healthy goal to have. So if you haven't started already, I want you to start to create some of these bins that I'm going to talk about using these props or tools or toys, right? You can have one for blocks or dress up figurines, vehicles, depending on what your home life situation is and all of that. But you don't want all of the stuff out all the time. You want to be able to switch it out so they can then be more creative. So you can play with them for a couple of weeks and then switch it up a bit. So you can even try to elicit some speech from them. Johnny, what do you want to play with today? If you have some pictures on your bins, then and ultimately you'll have some words, then they can start to associate and recognize what could be inside, right? Oh, those are blocks, or those are pictures of cars and trucks. You could give him a choice if he can't think of something on his own. Do you want to dress up or make a fort? Right? It's raining today, so we have to play, and then you can have fill in the blank. We have to play inside because it's raining right now. Or you can ask him to look outside and then plan his day or his play based on the weather, right? So understand that you're trying to instill or build curiosity. And that's what it's really about, those higher order thinking. And it starts with simple play. What do I want to do today for the next half an hour? Let him begin to imagine in his head. He's looking at his choices. Also recognize that this learning process is driven by his connection with you. So the tools or toys or props are important, but that only facilitates his understanding. So remember, my driving force or my purpose behind these messages is to help new moms mostly feel more empowered and inspired to step up, to be present, to be playful, right? And that I know it's a big responsibility knowing that my child's future is in my hands, but it is, and you can handle it. You just have to be mindful and thoughtful and to know what's really nurturing to all of this growth and learning. And dads are really, really important too, as well as grandparents. And I'm getting great comments from grandparents. So that's very exciting. But I've learned over the years that dads will often take our lead, especially during these first couple of years. It's just typical. It's not always, but for the vast majority. And one of my best compliments that I ever heard my husband give me, which I accidentally overheard, was he was chatting with his brother, and his brother says, "Hey, Chris, you really seem to know what you're doing. That's pretty cool." And our daughter was maybe 16, 17 months of age. And my husband said, "Well, not really. I just watch Erin and I do what she does." So take that, in stride when moms and dads are trying to learn how to play with a toddler, right? Most dads are pretty good at rough and tumble play, but open-ended, free-flowing, imaginary, dress up, maybe that's a little more uncomfortable for some of you. So let that internal child come out and have fun, right? Remember, our goal is you don't want to have to wait and see what happens. You want to be navigating this, and you don't want to end up on some waiting list because you're unsure, right? You want to be there for your toddler. And I know that you don't want to lower the expectations or just settle. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here listening to me. You wouldn't be looking on the internet. You wouldn't be striving to hone your new parenting skills, right? A lot of it is we are learning on the job. So let's stay focused on how we can create a home environment where his or her natural potential thrives. Let's work on what we know for sure and then build from that. And I will parse through the research to help you all translate how to use this in real life, in real time. So let's take a quick look at some of my ideas of what toys or materials or props we could use during this. And it starts around 16, 17, 18 months of age and then just continues to explode. So one of the most frequently asked questions is always, what kind of toys do I get a toddler who's in this transition period? So their attention is so-so, their language is so-so. How do I foster that and support that? Think that you want 90% child-driven and 10% toy, right? So you know the old story where, oh gosh, I bought Johnny this great big fire truck, has all kinds of bells and whistles, or Mary has this elaborate puzzle set, and yet they liked the box more that it came in than the actual toy. And that's because a 1, 2, or 3-year-old, they don't really understand the whole concept of toys. Play, they're just exploring their environment, right? And their understanding or their cognitive difference between, oh, these are toys that we play with and these are just everyday life things, right? So you want to build these bins with a lot of variety that you can start to introduce some of these playful objects or materials at 1.5, and they continue to expand until they're 5, 6, 7, 8, right? That's what pushes imagination, and it prompts or it promotes creativity and problem solving. How can I put these two pieces, these fabrics together and wear it as a cape? Right? And here's a side note, if you haven't figured this out already, but children love tape, all kinds of tape, duct tape, masking tape, painter's tape. So be prepared. It's a wonderful tool to have, and go to Lowe's and stock up on it. So I will have a list below of materials that I've used in the past. It's just kind of a starter list, but remember, the sky's the limit. You be creative. So go ahead and sign up on my email list, and you can get that printout. Meanwhile, I'll share some ideas from my list. Always start with cookware, the good old-fashioned Tupperware, unmatched silverware, anything you can gather from your house. Cleaning supplies, gardening tools, or tools in general, a hammer, a saw. They often have kids' versions. I remember getting my daughter a cute little pink hammer. Also, you can use a pretend axe or any of those kinds of general tools that they can quote unquote build things. Think of doctors or nurses' supplies. They love that. Teacher stuff. Some kids really like playing that role. Different kinds of papers, books, writing utensils, chalk, endless ideas. And remember, it's not about academics. It's about creativity and role playing, expanding their imagination. Let's go back to some traditional roles. Firemen with a hat, coat, belt, an old hose you might have, a short ladder. Remember, they have to move and crawl and climb over things to build that gross motor planning and the fine motor coordination. Always a dancer. My daughter was a great little tutu lover, and feathers and capes and boas and all of those magic wands. Think of the artist supplies. Again, they don't have to be expensive. They just have to be put in these little boxes where they can set things up, they can organize, and then create on paper, on cardboard, on old paper bags. And then the infamous fairies. You have a bin for fairies. And then I always suggest to families, read a book highlighting these particular characters or these roles. Make it simple, make it concrete so they don't get overwhelmed or confused, but they understand what this fireman does. And then perhaps visit your local fire department or the garbage truck, drive by the dump. Pretty stinky, but kids like to do that stuff. Then point things out in the environment. A cashier, they're checking you out with your food, crossing the conveyor belt, the exchange of money or use of a credit card, bagging up your groceries, meal planning, bring it back home. Help them understand the connection. I always stress to try to go to your Goodwill or a secondhand store to get these things, or perhaps even your dollar store. Sometimes I'm a little careful because that stuff can be cheap and you're not quite sure of the quality of the makeup, right? But scope out the end of season sales. Like currently it's the end of the summer. Look at garden supplies, look at barbecue or beach gear. All of this you could put in a great little basket or a great little box, wrap it up and use it as a gift. You get the idea, you understand. And I just want to mention this little caveat here, because as we enter October, yes, Halloween is right around the corner. And literally, it's so much easier to just purchase online and build quote unquote costumes that way. But I'm going to encourage all of you to take it a step further, to really think long term and associate with environments and different interest level than just the kind of gross-like costumes you can get online. But other ideas is possibly if you have pets and you visit the veterinarian, what types of products or materials do they need? If you see a policeman directing traffic or the crossing guard, again, looking at what these roles people have in real life. Can you visit your local farmer, say hello to the pilot on the plane, or better yet, go to the airport and watch the flights? There's all kinds of things. I'm sure you've heard many of these things, but to have it on a list can be helpful. Trust me, when kids get their fill during the day with these open-ended, imaginary play, there's a lot of brain power being dispersed and strengthening. Lots of physical energy is being expressed. Then what happens? The magic. They come in, they help you with dinner as best as they can, build up that routine, eat a healthy dinner with the family, talk about the food, replay your day, ask open-ended questions. Hey, Susie or Bobby or Johnny, how did you build your house? It's really their fort inside their bedroom, but see if they can explain it to you step by step. How did the dance show go today with your girlfriend, Mary Jo? Again, see if they can express themselves and share. Then, following a great dinner, a little conversation, they take a bath, you share some books with lots of cuddles, and they're ready for bed. That's their day. Then, and they're tired. They're ready to transition and sleep. And in a future episode, I will talk more in depth of what happens during those sleeping hours, because that's brain growth and brain development too. Keep in mind, our brains never really go to sleep, even yours and mine, that it really rehearses what we've done during the day. And if there are problems or developmental areas that your child is working through, they will literally contemplate it and work it through, whether it's motor or toilet training or speech. You know that old saying, oh, well, I'll just sleep on it and give you an answer tomorrow. That's literally happening, right? If you have to make a decision or contemplate whatever, you can sleep on it. And oftentimes we will sort through it subconsciously and figure it out. So your toddler will quote unquote practice during the night and then purge neurons that she or he don't need anymore. And I remember it distinctly when my daughter was starting to crawl, and we joke about this, but she often, or for the most part, crawled backwards more than she did forward. And during the night, I think it was for weeks, but it was extended night after night, we would hear her bumping up into the crib with her feet or her bum. And we'd go in to see if she was okay, because we'd hear this thump, 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 and she was literally crawling in her crib backwards, trying to figure it out. But she was sound asleep. She was just practicing the gross motor sequencing. She finally got it together and all was well. But these are just some ideas to get the ball rolling for you. Of course, all of this depends on the age of your child, but if you have a 16, 18, 20-month-old, you will start with some of the more classic and less elaborate layers to all of this. I will cover and walk through a couple of the more basic ones just to get a good baseline. You decide how much you want to open your home for this open-ended play and how you can coordinate through rotating toys and going out into the community and creating these materials. Remember, open-ended play has layers upon layers of opportunity to build language, to improve the processing skills, problem solving, higher order thinking, imagination, all of it. So today I just want to talk about some basic toys that everybody knows of and then how to build on that. And the first one is the classic of blocks, right? With different shapes and sizes, colors, different materials. They can build whatever, towers, castles, towns, you know all of this, that you can turn them into other objects, like use it as a telephone, use it as a car, build rooms, put people and animals in there. I mean, it's the sky's the limit. You start really small and just stack up blocks or put Duplos together. And then they get elaborate as they get older. I've shared this with you in other episodes, but I'm always reminding parents and teachers that the academics should stay in the back during toddlers and even preschool, but especially those first 3 years, that it's important to not push numbers or colors or counting or all of that. That's rote data, rote memory, and you can have a list of vocabulary words and all of that, but we want understanding. We want some depth and function to it all. And so you can say things like, well, look at all these red blocks can go together to build a red house or to build a fire station because red is like the fire truck, or all of this green to build the forest. What color are trees? And you can build this natural concept. Later on, you can use both all of these materials to help with organizing and to help sorting, what's the same and what's different. And again, those are higher concepts. But with a 1, 2, and 3-year-old, we're building the foundation of language and language processing, right? Where they're listening to us and then they're generating a response, verbal or nonverbal, and how well they understand the concepts of using this object to represent something else. And so as a diagnostic therapist that I was for umpteen years, and I probably tested thousands of kids, it was never about the data. Yes, schools would check off academic skills. Do they know their colors, their numbers? Can they count to 10? Could he write his name? In an evaluation process, I would put out 2 blue, 2 yellow, and 2 black blocks. And then I'd say, show me a block that's not yellow. That's a higher order processing, right? Negation is very high order. You see all these blocks and you have to give me one that's not what I asked for. So that's real concept thinking, right? That takes a lot of bandwidth to process the meaning of that statement. So that's just a thought, to always be asking open-ended question during this open-ended play. So another type of building material would be magnetic blocks. And I'm sure many of you have seen these or have them, but they've really expanded over the last 10 years for sure. I love working with them, and they're colorful. They're easily manipulated. Kids get great satisfaction, a good dopamine hit, because they can put them together and build rather efficiently, right? And your toddler is really honing those midline skills, putting things together at midline and pulling them apart or stacking them, reaching across midline and gathering some material, right? But the different shapes, the different sizes, you can be really creative. And so you can take Duplos and wooden blocks and magnetic blocks and build a very elaborate, whatever you're building, outer space or new town. You can put animals or Beanie Babies or cars or all kinds of things. Again, it's open-ended. The sky's the limit. Let him really imagine what could happen, right? Even though we put things in different bins, it's not about limiting, we can only do blocks today, or we can only do the farm animals today. It's about integrating these materials and then understanding how they can work together and be different too. So you're really honing his language, receptive language, taking prompts from you, and then using them in real time, right? Putting all the animals in the back of a truck and then taking them out to pasture or waking them up to feed them. And you say, good morning. It's rise and shine time. Let's get some breakfast. And you help them or you model what can be done and then let them go for it, right? You can ask questions. Oh my gosh, this piggy is thirsty. What does he need? And then you wait and you listen and you see if they can come up with something. Or you can say, let's rescue all the ducks because the storm is coming and they need to be safe. They need to be dry. Where could they go? And maybe you can point to under the chair or the magnetic tile, the building that you made over here. And you can ask, they need to get out of the storm. What can they do? It can be simple and concrete, but our kids really, really need prompts. They need the tools, right? And I'm talking about the materials that can be open-ended, and then you need to facilitate it and get it going. It's sort of like poking the fire to really get the wood ignited. Think vocabulary. Think that this is the stage that you're building those WH questions. And you're building on, you have this material, how can you be creative? What can you do with it? Like I said, you might want to go back and listen to episodes 18 and 19 from last year where I really talk a lot about the whole picture of the science of play. Today, I'm just really focusing on open-ended play. So just keep in mind that you show them the way. And then it's open. It's open to their interpretation. And sometimes you have to help facilitate a little bit more to the next level. Some kids just need the introduction and they're all in it. So with the holidays just right around the corner, I want you to think about keeping it simple. Less is more for your little ones from 0 to 3, but even up to 5. Like I said, they don't remember all of the big, beautiful packages under the tree. Don't feel pressured that more is better for these little guys. They don't remember, but they do remember the feelings about being with you and being with family and playing together and singing and walking around the neighborhood or rolling in the snow or jumping in the puddles or throwing leaves up in the air, right? They really enjoy outdoor and indoor play and being with you guys, rolling down the hills, making cookies, right? Toddlers need to be with us to learn from us and expand their skills. It's open-ended. So we will continue this conversation as the holidays are just right around the corner, but I wanted to just highlight this one specific style, and it needs to be a big part of their day. And we start in little chunks when they're 1.5 and 2.5, and then they can take the ball and run with it. So I'm all about eat, talk, and play. That's what builds happy, successful kids. Thanks again for sharing your precious time with me. And if you're gaining benefit with these episodes, please share and help me expand this conversation. Help reach new moms and dads just like you. I'm on a mission to reach 10,000 new moms. You guys are in the thick of it, and I know that you're ready. You don't have to do it alone, right? I'm here to help, to guide, to give you tools, to give you inspiration. Just keep in mind, your babies, your toddlers need you more than anybody else. You're their number one fan. You're their number one influencer, and you'll always be their number one love. So God bless, and I'll see you next week.